will provide posterior tilt to the scapula, which means with posterior tilt, if this is my rib cage and this is the scapula, we're thinking about that inferior angle being kind of pulled nice and flush against the rib cage, not this. This would be anterior tilt, and this would be posterior tilt, which is what we want the scapula to be doing along our rib cage.
Very cool. I'm going to stop the share so then you can show this on our new fellow geek, George.
Jeez. All right. So we'll start with where pull George down here. So the first muscle was lats that we talked about, and Dr. Osar did a good job of just showing along on the screen where the origins are. So the origins for lats are going to be all of the spinous processes of the lumbar vertebrae, and then basically your lower thoracic vertebrae. So coming all the way down this way, spinous processes. It's going to use that thoracolumbar aponeuroses as an origin as well, because that's what's going to allow it to get to these spinous processes and hold on tight. Also, that posterior iliac crest, all right? So that's where we get that nice little L shape here. And then you're going to have the last three ribs, all right? 9, 10, 11, 12. So it's got this whole area, comes up, grabs onto those ribs, goes up, ascends up, goes underneath. Because if you think about it, if this muscle went around, went this way, around your arm to get to that medial lip of the intertubercular groove, you'd have like a little straitjacket on and you couldn't move your arm. So thank goodness, powers that be said, let's not do that, and brought it up, and brought it around. And so this is going to be the way that your lats will come to their insertion up here at that medial lip of the intertubercular groove, right? And it's actually, if you can see on here, it's that little swipe of blue that is more towards the medial aspect of that humerus, all right? So that's your lats. And like I said, when it does its action, bringing the insertion closer to the origin that's back here, you're going to get extension, you're going to get adduction, and you're going to get internal rotation, right?
Yep. Perfect.
And then lower trapezius. All right, so lower trapezius is going to be originating from SPs of T5 down to T12. And then it is going to be coming up, has these diagonal fibers, superficial, along that spine of the scapula. So it's going to come up here. The little tiny, there's a little tiny kind of bump that's right there, and that's what they refer to as that tubercle of the spine of the scapula. Yep, right there, good. And also to where Dr. Osar is showing. There we go. All right, and so this is going to be the fiber direction. So you can see if the lower trap pulls down, you're going to get depression of the scap. If the lower trap pulls a little bit on this tubercle of the spine of the scapula, when it pulls, especially I think about these upper fibers of lower trap doing this, you're going to get that upward rotation where you see that inferior angle kind of swoop up and towards the armpit.
Awesome. And then it's also working. Can you just stay right there just for a moment?
Yeah. Sorry.
Lower trapezius.
Sticking my foot into my stomach. I was like, ow, stop.
We're not paying him enough money to do this. He's getting a little feisty. So sorry, let me start again. The lower trapezius actually works with the upper trapezius as what's called a force couple. These are muscles that pull sort of equal and opposite, and they create rotation. So if we think about, can you just trace the upper trapezius one more time, just to give people a reminder from last week?
Upper trap from last week is going to come from that EOP and the ligamentum nuchae, that kind of area at the back of the neck, and then it comes down, forms more of that like drape over the shoulders, and comes down to that lateral clavicle area. So that's going to be the fiber direction for upper trap.
So what happens is, thank you for showing that.
Yeah.
What happens is upper trapezius is pulling up this direction from that lateral aspect of the clavicle, and the lower trapezius is pulling down that direction. So when the scapula is stabilized upon the rib cage, they're pulling equal and opposite, relatively speaking. They create rotation, upward rotation, and posterior tilt, and they control then downward rotation and anterior tilt. So with your clients that have the forward shoulder, we'll talk about that in a few moments, they probably have some overstretching and or inhibition of the upper traps and or lower traps. And we talked about what it looks like when people have over lengthened upper traps last time. We'll review that today and also address the lower trapezius in this section as well. Now, the most important thing is the alignment here. Too many clients are just hanging, the whole body's on the floor. If you notice, I'm up over top the Rolga with my shoulder blade is actually in or on the Rolga. So the Rolga is in between my shoulder blade and the humerus. We do not teach our clients to roll over their rib cage or over the ribs. Do not do that. You will sublux the ribs. You can injure clients. If your clients have osteoporosis, you can actually fracture ribs. Don't roll over ribs. If you want to do it yourself, if you want to take that on, feel free to do it because that's your responsibility. But do not give your clients rolling over top the ribs. It's not worth the risk of injuring them, which then you are liable for teaching them to roll over their ribs. So I'm on my shoulder. The Rolga is between my shoulder and my humerus. I'm not directly upon my rib cage, even though, yes, my ribs are over top the Rolga, but it's underneath my shoulder more than my ribs themselves. Also notice my alignment here. I'm trying to align my head, neck, and thoracolpelvic cylinder. Because if you want to release the lats, why would you release the lats in a contorted position? You need to release the lats when you're stabilized, like when you're doing a row position. So you want to release and lengthen the lats in the most optimal position, which is, again, why the setup position is so vital to this release. Now, you see I'm aligned. My head and neck are aligned with my thoracolpelvic cylinder. What I'm going to do now is a very gentle contract, relax. So I'm contracting my elbow down into the floor with a count of 5 seconds, and then I reach up. And it's not about how high I reach up towards the ceiling. It's just about pinning the scapula on the Rolga and then reaching up to lengthen the lat attachment as it's coming around underneath to the humerus. I'm going to show it from the side as well, but just so you know what I'm doing. So I'm holding it up there for about 2 to 3 breaths, making sure I stay long. Sometimes clients will have neck discomfort, so I'll just place a hand underneath my head and neck to support my head and neck, and then reach up. If your client is getting any kind of impingement in their shoulder, they don't need to reach up. They can still do the contraction and then just relax. So I'm contracting down into the floor for 5 seconds and then slowly reaching up, not as high as I can. I could reach higher, but I don't want to create any shoulder impingement. I do this for 3 to 5 repetitions. I'll turn to the side so you can see what it looks like from the side. I align my thoracolpelvic cylinder, my head and neck. My weight is up over top the Rolga, not on my ribs, more on the shoulder itself. I push down lightly into the floor and then reach up just a few inches and maintain that position as I'm breathing. Try to breathe down into my rib cage, especially on my left side where I'm releasing. I'm maintaining that alignment. And again, I do 3 to 5 repetitions. And it's not trying to crush the elbow through the floor. It's just lightly pushing the elbow into the floor to contract and shorten the lats, and then using my breath and reaching the fingers towards the ceiling. Again, this may be slightly uncomfortable, but it shouldn't be so painful that your client cannot release. So this is the best, the #1 release we have for latissimus dorsi, and it's amazing. What I want you to do if you're trying this on your own, which you should try this on your own before you ever use it with your clients, is check your shoulder range of motion, overhead range of motion first, then do this release, and then recheck it. It's amazing how quickly and easily it works. You don't need to mash and dig and grind and put your shoulder in contorted positions. You just need to use that contract, relax, using the neuromyofascial connection to let some of that restriction go and to lengthen between the scapula and the humerus. So the incline row is basically the same exact concept. So again, I'm going to cue myself here. You're going to see that I maintain the exact same alignment we've been talking about. I align my head and neck, align and stack my thoracolpelvic cylinder before I ever go back and recline myself. I maintain that open and wide shoulder position, and now I row. I actually spin my arms or rotate my arms opposite of what the lat does. So as you notice, I'm going into supination. Basically, I'm going to external rotation through the eccentric phase, and then I go into internal rotation during the concentric phase. That adds a little bit more stretch to the lat during the eccentric phase, but again, you see the perfect alignment. Well, relatively perfect. It's not as awesome as it could be, but it's relatively aligned during the incline bodyweight row. And again, if you're using a bar, so like crazy look I had on my face. So align myself and then pull my chest to the bar. And again, maintaining the alignment of the thoracopubic cylinder and controlling the eccentric phase of the exercise pattern. If you notice, every single repetition, there's no change in my thoracopubic cylinder. It stays aligned throughout every single repetition. That's how you start to have your clients own the position, the posture that you're training them to be in.